bullet to save his life. Why? Because he was psychoanalyzing FDR over tapes. Tapes were sent to him, and he was in that process. And they had to save him. And the Gestapo actually went into his office as maybe the greatest intellect on earth at the time. But he was a Jew, and to them, garbage. And he knew he had to get out. And he left Vienna. We got him out. He got to London and had, he used to say, "Wir denken unser Führer," which is, we thank our Führer, as a joke, because he got him to London where he was very happy, and a lovely home, and the English fussed over him and all that. So, and he wrote his last book, Moses and Monotheism, a brilliant book, which was heretical, but magnificent, and very interesting if you want to read a short, great intellectual tour de force. Doesn't mean I agree with him, but it was fantastic. He said Moses wasn't a Jew. Moses, the name, is Egyptian. Moses was an Egyptian priest of the sun who believed in one God, the sun God. But then he went on to realize it's not the sun. There's a God even beyond. And he tried to teach that to the Egyptian people. But of course, he was a servant of Akhenaten, the monotheistic pharaoh. And he failed. Akhenaten was overthrown. The worshippers of the one God, the sun, were cast out, and the 5,000 gods of Egypt came back. But then, says Freud, he realized, Moses, this Egyptian priest of the one God, realized the Egyptians, with all their great accomplishments, were not ready for this. But they had a slave population. And they had made a covenant with a mysterious God. And they believed in one God. And he went to them. And he preached the one God to them. And of course, they bought it. And in the name of that God, he led them out of Egypt. But he wasn't a Jew. So you can imagine the reaction of the rabbis in England when they find the greatest Jewish prophet is an Egyptian. I don't know, what difference does it make? But to them, it was heresy. And I think he enjoyed the fuss he made at the end of his life. He loves to stir things up. I mean, he talked about infant sexuality. Our dear little children who are so pure and good want to have sex with mother and kill father. The Oedipus complex, oh my God. The Pei went berserk. Horrifying. But he makes you overturn all your superstitions and really accept a reality that's not very attractive, but it's probably real. In any case, the heirs of the kingdom will be thrown out into the darkness. Now, any Jewish reader would be insulted. I'm insulted by that. Where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Matthew loves the weeping and the gnashing. That's hell to him. And to the centurion, but in a way, he's right. If being in the church is being saved, then most Jews chose not to join. Because they said, our religion's fine. Why take another? There's nothing wrong with that one, but we have one here. That's fine. But the Jew, Matthew loves the Jews who were the foundation of the church. Jesus and all the disciples. And every writer in the New Testament except Luke. But the Jews who didn't frustrate him. So he says unkind things. Because they're so close to him. You get most upset about people who are near you, who don't do what you want. I fear those shadows most that start from my own feet. You don't get angry with people way over there. It's the people next to you that get angry. So, and to the centurion, the Gentile, he says, go, let it be done for you according to your faith. And the servant was healed in that hour. Now, isn't this extraordinary? He's contradicting himself. He said in the Sermon on the Mount, deeds, deeds, deeds. And now he says, this, as far as he knows, the centurion hasn't done any good deeds. But he has faith in Christ. And because of that, his servant is healed. Now we see this elsewhere, where people's faith can work for someone else's healing. We'll see it in the famous paralytic episode. But, God bless you, this is healing by the word. By the word. He healed the leper by touching, he heals him by the word. Jesus can do it either way. Here is faith. Acceptance by faith, not deeds. So Matthew is not at all consistent, as we human beings rarely are. So that's healing number 2, the Gentile. Now healing number 3. Again, a Jew. It's like a sandwich. Jew, Gentile, Jew. Meaning that Jesus is for everybody. But he compliments the Gentile more than the Jews because that's the future of the church. That's why he put 3 wise men at the birth. In Luke, you have Jewish shepherds. Why? Because they're the outcasts of a farming society. They're what the society used to be, a shepherding society. And when they moved to farming, the shepherds were looked down on. So it's always the most humble who understand Jesus. The shepherds were the first. That's Luke's message. He loved the poor. Not the spirit. He doesn't say, in his version of the Sermon on the Mount, the Sermon on the Plain, he doesn't say, blessed are the poor in spirit. He has Jesus say, blessed are you poor, meaning people who have no money. Only Luke's Jesus is interested in helping the physically, the monetarily deprived. The other people's Jesus is concerned with the rich. It's money that distracts us. The rich have a problem, distracts us from God. Give us this daily bread, but we don't need anything else. And other things will distract us from God after a basic subsistence life. It's the rich who have a problem, not the poor. But in Luke, the poor have a problem, and Jesus wants to alleviate it. He's a social worker, very different from Jesus in the other Gospels. But all right, back to Matthew. Healing number 3. When Jesus entered Peter's house, now this is out of context. Mark puts it in context. Jesus went to synagogue one Saturday morning, as was his wont, says Luke. He was a synagogue-going Jew, didn't care for the temple in Jerusalem, but he went to synagogue. And run by Pharisees, by local rabbis. And sometimes he read lessons in the synagogue, says Luke. That's not here. But afterwards, after the synagogue service, he went to lunch at Peter's. And that's typical. If you're people invite you to lunch. Jesus was not a stranger to Peter, but whenever I go to a synagogue in some town somewhere, frequently they'll say, do you want to come up and say a prayer at the altar, at the ark, or do you want to have anyone to go for lunch? If not, come home with us. So a very great hospitality. When Jesus entered Peter's house, but this is out of context. For Mark, we know it's right after a Saturday service. He saw his mother-in-law. Where there's a mother-in-law, there's a wife somewhere. Is Peter separated from his wife? Maybe his wife has died. That's probably most likely, because the mother-in-law does the cooking here. He saw his mother-in-law lying in bed with a fever. Well, he wants lunch. It's so cute. He's been praying for 3 hours. Maybe the services then probably weren't quite as long as we have now. But he wants lunch, and she can't make lunch because she's sick in bed. So he touched her, healing by touch again, laying on of hands. And the fever left her. It's not a demon. He can drive out demons, but this is simple. This is just a fever. And she got up and began to serve. So she cooks. In the movie Moonstruck, wonderful, delightful movie. If you haven't seen it, who's seen Moonstruck? Oh, wonderful. About Italians living in Brooklyn in New York. It's with Cher, is her name, right? And wonderful Italian stars who have now died. And they have the family, alla famiglia. That's the whole thing, is the family. And why do I bring this up? Oh, God. The cooking, oh, yes. The guy who's going to marry Cher comes back from Italy, where he's been visiting his dying mother. And he's so connected to his mother, he can't marry as long as his mother's alive, but his mother's dying, goes back to be there for the funeral. And he comes back and says to Cher, I can't marry you. What do you mean you can't marry? Meanwhile, she's been sleeping with his brother, so she doesn't want to marry him anymore. But she acts as if she's been insulted. She's so relieved. What do you mean? You made a promise. I have a ring. And he said, I can't. My mother didn't die. It was a miracle. 1 minute she was dying. The next minute she got up and started cooking for everybody. And it's wonderful. So this is the same thing. I wonder if the man who wrote this thing read the gospel. She gets up and starts. Jesus is there. She doesn't ask him about his divinity, his holiness. She says, I'll cook. She cooks. That's the way she expresses love. She's a good mother-in-law. He heals by touch. again, authority. Matthew is saying, for heaven's sakes, to his fellow Jews, realize who this is. It's not just another rabbi. This is special. And then a general statement. He has all these specific stories. Now you have something general. Verse 16. That evening they brought to him many who were possessed with demons, and he cast out the spirits with a word. They believed in those days that certain diseases, not all, not the mother-in-law's flu or whatever, but epilepsy and anything like that, all kinds of things, were caused by demons. And he cast them out with a word. Again, healing with the word, by touch. He's alternating. I heal by touch, I heal by the word. I heal by touch, I heal by... Jesus can do anything. And he cured all who were sick. This, and now he says to his fellow Jewish readers, this was to fulfill what had been spoken through the prophet Isaiah. And read it, chapter 53, the suffering servant of God. He took our infirmities on and bore our diseases. Now that's not at all what Isaiah meant. Isaiah meant that the suffering servant, whoever he is, and Christians believe him to be Jesus, Jews read that as the collective Son of God. It's about the people Israel and their suffering through the ages, all up to the Holocaust and then the persecution by the Soviets under Stalin. And today, well, in Arab worlds, but there's so few Jews, the Arabs are persecuting Christians now because there are Christians there, but the Jews have fled. People don't tell you that in 1948, 400,000 Palestinians fled from Israel, and they say they were driven out. The Israelites say they were told by their own government, old Arab governments roundabout, to get out because the Arab armies were coming in to kill the Jews, and then the Arabs could come back to Palestine and take all the Jews' property. Well, it was a mixture. Some were driven out, some left of their own accord. But the world forgets that an equal number of Jews, 400,000, who lived in Arab countries for thousands of years, were driven out of those countries when Israel was founded and fled to Israel. But they're not refugees today. They were immediately absorbed by their fellow Jews. And they're half of the Jewish population of Israel are Arab Jews, not descendants of European Jews, who've lived in the Middle East for generations, never left it. The difference is the Israelites completely assimilated their brethren, and the Arabs put them in these disgusting camps to wither away and would never allow them, except the king of Jordan. Most of his population is Palestinian. He's a good guy. But the others want nothing to do with them. And if you read, they wanted to keep them in these camps so they can blame Israel for the plight of these wretched people, now 1.5 million at least, and insist that Israel bring them back into Israel, which would destroy Israel, make it an Arab country. That'll never, never happen. But it's a deliberate fraud. Only the Palestinian refugees are the eternal refugees of the world. You know, when Pakistan broke from India, the Muslims by the millions fled India and went to Pakistan. They're not in refugee camps. They were accepted. And the Hindus in Pakistan fled to India, and they are now part of India. Only the Palestinian refugees. And it was done deliberately by Arab governments to have a club to hit Israel in world opinion. Oh, there's terrible Jews. They put those people in camps. They drove them out and put them in camps. Well, the 20th century is a time of exchange of populations, but only the Palestinians were absorbed. And frankly, I'm sick of hearing about it, because they could easily be absorbed by... Look, Israel's the size of New Jersey. The Palestinian land's millions and millions of miles. And they never absorbed them. It's on them, not on the Israelis. And everyone forgets the Jewish refugees that went in the other direction. No one ever mentions that. Pardon me? I can't hear you. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. All right. I get carried away. Forgive me. So so it's to fulfill Isaiah. What it really meant in Isaiah 53 is that he'll take our Israel, the nation, takes the sins of the world on their shoulders, or Christ The single Israelite, Son of God, takes the sins of the world on his shoulders. Here he's not taking the sins of the world. He is curing people, and so he's tweaking, Matthew's tweaking Isaiah to mean he took our infirmities by curing them. It's not exactly what the text means, but he can use it this way if he wants to. Everyone knows the original. All right, we'll pick it up in section 49 next time. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for pointing that out. The Monday is over because Easter, after Easter, they won't have a service here on Wednesday. So